Good afternoon. My name is Fatty, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the In and Out of On-Bill Financing conference call. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. And after the speaker's remarks, there will be a question and answer session. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to turn the conference to our first presenter, Ms. Andrea Denny. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the call today. We're going to be talking about on-bill financing, hopefully answering all your questions. We're going to be hearing from three great speakers from ACEEE, from the city of Tallahassee, and from Hawaii. I'm going to be doing a more thorough introduction of them later, but first I wanted to turn it over to Alexis St. Juliana, who is going to explain a little bit about the software that we're using and how to ask questions during the webinar. Alexis?
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you for joining today, everyone. Those of you that have attended past webinars might be familiar with the software. There are a few different ways for you to participate today. First is using the question and answer box on the right-hand side of your screen. Please let us know who your question is for, and we will save all of those questions for the session at the end. Another way to participate today is by clicking on the hyperlinks that you see on your screen. Anything that's hyperlinked should be active for you to follow and explore that content. We will also use the polling feature in the software today to ask several questions during the webinar. It should be fairly simple to participate. There is no submit button, so as soon as you select your response, it has been received. If you're on a mobile device or tablet, you might need to exit full screen mode and tap on the poll icon, which looks like a slip of paper dropping into a ballot box. And then the third and final way to participate today is by completing the feedback form. You'll see the link to it in the Q&A box, and it will also appear when we close today's meeting.
All right, thank you, Alexis. So as the operator indicated, my name is Andrea Denny. I'm with US EPA's State and Local Energy and Environment Program. Today we're going to be hearing from Nick Henner at ACEEE, Robert Seaton and Julian Ganoudis with the City of Tallahassee, Florida, and Gwen Yamamoto with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. I just wanted to start by telling you a little bit about the program I'm with at EPA and some of the resources we have related to on-bill financing and clean energy financing more broadly. So our program has been around for many years, and finance is just one of many topics that we cover to try and support state, local, and tribal energy and environmental officials with advancing their goals. We have a lot of free tools, resources, data, and technical expertise that we can offer to you all. We encourage you to visit our website through the link that is here on your screen. Specifically related to on-bill programs, we recently published a primer. It's about a few-page document that just runs through the basics on different kinds of on-bill financing programs, runs through a couple of case studies. It's a good complement to today's webinar. We also have a clean energy financing decision guide aimed at states and communities. So this covers more options than just on-bill financing and goes into a little bit of depth about some of the different financing options states and cities can pursue. We're actually in the process of updating this, and we'll be releasing that new version and a companion tool next year. So I encourage you to check back for those if those are things that you're interested in. I also wanted to highlight that the Department of Energy has also been covering this topic and has put together a number of resources that would be helpful to you if this is something you're interested in pursuing or promoting in your community or in your state. So all of these links, as Alexis mentioned, are active. You can click on them now or at a later time, but they really do have a nice set of resources that can help you with putting together an on-bill finance program. And then finally, this is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. I also encourage you to visit our website or sign up for our newsletter or our LinkedIn group. That's a great way to stay informed about some of the resources I mentioned, like the updated financing guide and tool. If you're not already getting our newsletters, this is a good way to find out more information when we have new resources. And with that, we are going to do our first poll. So you should be seeing this coming up on your screen, but basically we just wanted to do a quick poll to get a little bit more of a feel for the audience that's on the call today. So if we have a lot of different options. You're with a public utility that offers on-bill financing, a public utility that doesn't offer on-bill financing, a private utility with on-bill financing, private utility without on-bill financing. I know it says state, but please read that as state or local agency that promotes on-bill financing, or you don't promote on-bill financing, or you really just aren't sure, or you don't kind of fit into one of these categories. So we'll give you a minute or so to respond to that survey or that poll. Okay, great. It looks like things have slowed down, so we'll go ahead, and as we expected, we kind of have a smattering of different options, although it looks like there's a pretty good representation of public utilities split pretty equally between those that offer on-bill financing and those that don't. And then, about 4% for private utilities with on-bill financing, 10% private utilities without on-bill financing, and 8% from state or local agencies with on-bill financing, 2% from state and local agencies without on-bill financing, and quite a large percentage, 27%, of people who don't really fit into one of those categories. So maybe we'll find out more about you throughout the call. So with that, we are going to move on and introduce our first speaker. Nick Henner. Nick conducts research and analysis on clean energy finance strategies at ACEEE's state policy program and collaborates with teams across the organization. He also leads the content development and promotion of ACEEE's 2020 Energy Efficiency Finance Forum. He joined ACEEE in 2019, but before that he worked at the City and County of Honolulu's Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency, focusing on energy efficiency and equity projects. He has a Master's of Science in Sustainability Management from American University and a Bachelor of Science in Finance from the University of Arizona. So Nick, please go ahead.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for the intro and the opportunity to share a little bit on on-bill. So I'm going to quickly just go over a basic on-bill finance 101 to give everyone that's new to this mechanism an overview of how they work, what they're used for, and how they can deliver energy savings. Here's a quick agenda of what I will be reviewing. And first, most importantly, what is an on-bill program? So it's a method of financing energy-related improvements that use the utility bill as the repayment vehicle. And on-bill finance programs are very complementary to different utility rebates and incentives because they can often bring the upfront costs to zero for energy improvement projects. And there are three main types of on-bill payment programs. And oftentimes they're all under the umbrella term on-bill financing, but for the sake of at least the next few slides I'll be presenting, on-bill payment program will be the umbrella term. And the first being on-bill financing. And here the utility is the lender for the on-bill program. Ratepayer funds are often collected for energy efficiency programs. Ratepayer funds collected for energy efficiency programs are often the most common funding source, but utility shareholder funds can also be used. The next is on-bill repayment. And the difference between this and on-bill financing is under the on-bill repayment, the capital provider is not the utility, but a third party. And the utility operates as a repayment conduit for that third-party capital provider. And lastly is a tariffed on-bill. And what really differentiates the tariffed on-bill is that the payment is tied to the meter and not the actual residency or customer. And efficiency upgrades are financed not through a loan, but rather through a utility offer that pays for upgrades under the terms of new additional tariff. This tariff includes a cost recovery charge on the bill that is often less than the estimated savings of the given efficiency initiative. But at the end of the day, what all three of these have in common is that the utility bill acts as mechanisms for repayment for whichever efficiency or energy improvement initiative is done. And next is a quick overview of the on-bill landscape across the country. And there's currently 110 programs. Most of them are either made up of rural co-ops or municipal utilities. But as you can see from the map, there are quite a few investor-owned utilities that offer on-bill programming. And we'll be hearing from one of them shortly. And in 2014, there was nearly $180 million of lending that for energy efficiency improvement projects via the on-bill programs. And that number has definitely increased since then, but that was 2016 was the last time a major study has been put into that by Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, though that might change soon. Moving on, we'll go over some of the benefits of an on-bill program. First is that they can potentially offer better loan performance in terms than a conventional loan. And on-bills, because of the on-bill's place on the utility bill, it's oftentimes a more reliable repayment source than other traditional financing products, such as an unsecured loan or a lease agreement. Default rates for on-bill programs are generally very low, between 0 to 3%. Another benefit is they can often offer longer duration, sometimes 10 plus years, than conventional loans, which make more expensive upfront projects that have a shorter payback period much more attainable and accessible. Another benefit is the alternative underwriting practices involved with an on-bill program. Because of this, it often makes it more equitable and more equitable with participants. On-bill programs can go outside of traditional underwriting standards to offer their program to a more diverse audience. Generally, more relaxed credit standards than traditional loans offered from a bank. For example, in Holland, Michigan, customers just have to have paid 12 consecutive months of their utility bill on time and can't have any delinquent taxes, bankruptcies, or foreclosures in the past 3 years, regardless of what their conventional credit score is. So it can be very powerful to open doors for folks that might not have access to capital because of lack of credit score. Next, another benefit is because it operates within the existing utility program. Because just like this puppy and PJs, customers are comfortable paying their utility bills. Most often after their housing payment, utility is what people pay next. Because of that, it doesn't require applying for additional loan through a new third party. It's through the utility, and people are very comfortable doing that. It's something they've been doing for decades and decades, and something that's done every month, and it's very easy. Next is that the on-bill repayments classified as a off-balance sheet expense. And this can be very great for and open doors for organizations that cannot take on more debt or need to go through some form of approval process to take on more debt. Next is transferability. So what's unique about on-bill programs, and this is unique actually to tariffed on-bill and some on-bill repayment programs, is that the loan is potentially transferable. There are not too many examples of this in practice, but because in tariffed on-bill, the loan or repayment is tied to the meter and not the customer, if someone moves out, the next tenant would take on the responsibility of repayment of the efficiency initiative through their utility bill. But in many situations when they're not transferable, and if you move out prior to the duration of the loan term, oftentimes the payoff that's necessary for that loan is negated due to the increased value in the sale price of the property because of the efficiency asset that was put in place. And last, and this is probably the most important or powerful piece to benefits of an on-bill is bill neutrality. And for tariffed on-bill programs and some on-bill repayment programs, bill neutrality is a requirement. And what that means is that in order for one of the funding to be approved, that the efficiency initiative has to have decreased the utility bill. But even without a neutrality requirement, the idea is for all these on-bill programs that the utility bill will decrease due to the efficiency savings, despite the extra repayment charge associated with the energy improvement project. Next, a few barriers to building an on-bill financing program. And the three main ones are utility burden, administrative burden, and consumer protection concerns. And with the utility burden, oftentimes utilities can be reluctant to operate outside their core business, as well as some jurisdictions require legislation to be passed to allow a utility to offer on-bill payment. And same with that, some on-bill programs, sometimes the utilities are in jurisdictions that do not allow them to offer interest for repayment of energy improvement projects. But some ways around that is to offer, either go through the tariff on-bill program or an on-bill repayment program where the utility is not the actual capital provider. And also, of course, all on-bill programs have to comply with the given consumer protection laws within the state or municipality. And next, we'll get into ways that your local governments can support an on-bill program. And some ways for indirect support would be to raise awareness. And example, this is probably the reason this is on top is because of how powerful this can be. For example, in Arkansas, the Ouachita Electric Cooperative recently reported that in the first 9 months after launching their on-bill program, more than 90% of customers who were offered the option to sign up actually signed up. So it's really getting the word out to customers that this is an option to, to decrease their utility payments by investing in an energy efficiency improvement project. Some other ways that they can support is to capitalize or back an on-bill program. Example of this is the statewide Michigan Saves program used $3 million from the American Recovery Investment Act grant funds to establish a 5% loan loss reserve with the program's participating credit union lender, which provides the capital for the energy improvement loans, which obviously makes this much more attractive for third-party lenders when most of the the loan portfolio lent out is guaranteed to be repaid. Some other indirect ways to support is to create policy or legislative incentives when necessary, assemble stakeholders, collaborate with state governments, work with the local utility, as well as participate in the on-bill program offered by the utility themselves. Next, some direct ways where municipality can support the on-bill program is to engage with partners to support, kind of back with the stakeholder outreach, is to engage with partners to support municipally owned utilities. And next, and this one cannot be understated, is the education and training of local contractors and service technicians. And I was actually recently at a PACE conference where this idea was just echoed at us many times, that if the service providers and technicians don't know about these programs, oftentimes the end customers are not going to find out about them either. So local contractors are really on the first lines for energy improvement projects. And they can be ambassadors and real advocates for these programs and offer a true win-win-win scenario where the contractor can often end up selling a more expensive piece of equipment that is takes longer to install the service. The customer ends up saving money in the long term because of the energy efficiency gains, and less energy is consumed. And finally, here's some steps for local governments to launch an on-bill program. And these 5 steps are taken from the Environmental Energy Institute's how-to guide launching an on-bill program, which I definitely recommend checking out if you want further information on on-bill programs. They offer a lot of great support on starting on-bill programs, as well as ACEEE's own Energy Efficiency Finance Toolkit, and of course, the aforementioned EPA's Clean Energy Finance on-bill program primer that just came out last week. That's it for me. Thanks for listening. And I will, as Andrea said earlier, I will remind everyone that ACEEE has an Energy Efficiency Finance Forum in June that I hope to see all of you at.
Great, thanks so much, Nick. And just a reminder, if people have questions for Nick, you can go ahead and type those in the Q&A box. It's helpful to us if you indicate who that question's for, but we'll probably figure it out either way. Next, we're going to go ahead and do another quick poll. Nick covered a lot of the benefits of on-bill programs, and so we're just going to do a quick poll to get a feel from you of what you feel like the most important or which benefits appeal to you the most. You can choose more than one, but we ask that you do kind of narrow it down to the ones that you feel are the most important and not just pick all 5 of them, even if they might all be important. So we have reduced home energy costs, reduced risk for investors and underwriters, expanded access to clean energy, reduced pollution, and avoided energy system costs. All right, we're going to go ahead and close that. So it looks like the most popular answer with 37 votes was reduced home energy costs, so helping people out by saving them money, followed by expanded access to clean energy with 28 votes, then avoided energy system costs with 17 votes, reduced risk for investors and underwriters with 13, and wrapping it up with reduced pollution with 9 votes. So thanks very much. That's very informative. Next, I'm going to introduce our 2 speakers from the City of Tallahassee, Robert Seaton and Julian Ganoudis. Bob is the Customer Resolutions Manager in the City of Tallahassee's Office of Customer Operations. He's worked for the city for 37 years in energy conservation, demand-side management, and customer services roles, including energy auditing, program administration, key accounts, marketing, and training. He has a master's from the Florida Atlantic University. Julian is the Key Accounts Representative for the City of Tallahassee's Office of Customer Operations. Julian has worked for the city for 26 years in energy conservation, demand-side management, and customer service roles, including energy auditing, key accounts, information systems, database administration, as a loan officer, training, and solar net metering coordination. He holds a BA from Florida State University. Bob and Julian, please take it away.
Hey, thanks. This is Bob. I'd just like to say, first off, thanks to Andrea, Alexis, Sarah, Victoria, and others with EPA who coordinated this good webinar. I'll mention that City of Tallahassee is a moderate-sized municipal utility with about 100,000 residential customers, or really residential service points, and about 15,000 commercial. We also have a natural gas utility with about 30,000 service points. We created this, our loan program goes back 36 years to March of 1983. And that was about 2 years after the state of Florida required utilities of a certain size to begin offering free home energy audits, which we did. And it wasn't long afterward that our city commission wanted us to have programs to assist customers in doing things to partner with the energy audits themselves. So that's how we got going. We launched the loan program and a 7-measure weatherization program on the same day in March '83. I would say that our loan program has thrived over the years. There were times in the late 80s where we approached 800 loans a year. We still march along about 400 to 450 loans in a typical year recently. The basic specifications in the program, fundamentally it's 5% interest, 5 years term, $10,000 maximum amount. The loans are recorded, they're secured with a property lien. There's no down payment, no penalty for early payoff. For solar PV installations in particular, we double the term to 10 years. We double the maximum amount to $20,000. We try to encourage solar. Loan eligibility is a lot like what Nick described for Holland, Michigan. Ours is based on on-time utility payments without recent bankruptcy or foreclosure or federal tax liens. We do have, for the last 10 years, we've had pretty comprehensive rebate programs, both for natural gas appliances and for Energy Star plug-in electric appliances. And participants in the loan program are eligible for those rebates, and that probably accounts for a lot of the kind of impetus, the marketing impetus that pushes the loan program along. The program is funded, or we lend about $3 to $4 million a year. It is on-bill financing. That's a significant component. It's an important part of the program. The default rate in this loan program has been always low. It's maybe a little higher since the economic crisis of 2008, but it's still hovering below 1.5%. Still seems pretty low. Currently, there are about 38 eligible measures in the loan program, about triple the number that we started with. And most popular, probably what you would expect, HVAC, natural gas appliances, especially water heaters, Energy Star windows, Energy Star reflective roofing, refrigerators, variable speed pool pumps are all popular. Some measures that are surprisingly less popular than you might think would be solar PV. I think we have a really good offer, but it just happens that most, and there is certainly an upsurge in solar installations on homes in Tallahassee, but by and large, those customers don't turn to us for lending. I think they don't turn to anybody for lending is my impression. They just pay cash. Heat pump water heaters had been a popular measure in the program. They faded off after GE left the marketplace. Water source heat pumps, stronger in earlier years, few installers, and so they're not so numerous. Solar films and solar screens seem like great measures for Florida, but have a relatively small place in the loan program. They are eligible measures. Okay. Early on in the program, we did establish a revolving fund for the residential loans. 10 years later, for the commercial loans that started in 1993. The funding was all internally sourced for these loans, coming from electric revenues. So it is all funded by ratepayer funds coming through electric. We began with $1 million in the first year. We added another $1 million in the second year. There were some subsequent additions over the years. And at first it was a 0% interest loan and not on the bill in the first year. It was a payment coupon book. A long waiting list developed. There was a slow administrative process. We were on a learning curve right then, but somewhere in the second year, we got it onto the utility bill, and that made a big difference. After 1993, we took on the current specifications, 5% interest, 5 years term. And again, that was the year, 93, that we started commercial loans. We had a rush of loan applications as we came up to the interest rate change. We went from 3% to 5% in 93. We've had some particular challenges in the program early on, especially. There was, I think I mentioned, a long waiting list that developed. It turned out not so much to be a problem of sufficient funding, so much as an administrative slowdown. We just solved it by reviewing our procedure, changing our sequences, and found a way to speed up the process. More critically, there was a slow contractor payment issue, in particular for HVAC contractors. We specifically switched from approving loans prior to the signing of the promissory note to approving loans after the signing of the promissory note, so that a customer would go completely through the administrative process before we would mark them as approved and signal that to their chosen contractor. Then the contractor could begin work, and on completion of a past inspection, in the case of HVAC, then we would pay the contractor. So that was a challenge, and we kind of resequenced the procedure through the program to get by that. We also, at that same time, we became pretty emphatic in refusing to loan for measures installed prior to loan approval. We learned, and this was also quite early on, we learned to take the loan application form out of the customer's hands. And so there's no longer a form that any customer would fill out himself or herself. Our loan officer creates the application. We will ask the applicant for a copy of their recorded deed, copy or copies of their contractor bids, and we'll create the loan documentation from those documents. But there's a lot of hand-holding in the program, and we learned to like the hand-holding. It has gone better in that fashion. We do not have a contractor list. We do not have a contractor list of approved contractors. Any contractor who's able to pull necessary permit in the jurisdictions having authority here, either City of Tallahassee or Leon County, is good for us in this program. And we do differ from some other utility loan programs in that way. We tried to keep on good terms with the local HVAC contractors. We joined their trade organization. We became friends with them on first-name basis. We did what we could to just keep a good comfort level with local installers. We do not pay, we don't send loan checks, generally speaking, to the customer. We send the check to the installing contractor, and that is common in other programs that I've spoken to. If the customer wanted us to send the check to the customer, we would require a paid receipt, which kind of tortures the meaning of having the loan in the first place, so that seldom happens. Yeah, we did away with the 3 bid requirements pretty early on. We found that a lot of HVAC customers especially had long-time contractors that they had worked with They didn't want to be put through getting multiple bids when they knew already who they were going to work with. We have a very strong home energy audit program. At first, it was kind of the cornerstone of all of our programs, including the loan program. But we know it's hot in Florida. A customer whose air conditioner has broken down is pretty desperate for a replacement. We often had long waiting lists for energy audit appointments, so we did away with that as a requirement prior to participation. Some do's and don'ts in the program. We did resist the temptation to require bundling of measures. And it was a temptation, but it wasn't what the customers wanted. They felt tortured by it, and so we didn't do that. We did, over time, begin to completely align our efficiency standards with federal Energy Star. We let Energy Star do the heavy lifting in that way, and that would be both for our loan program and for our rebate programs. In terms of analytics, there are about, I think I mentioned we do 450 residential loans a year and about 15 or 20 commercial loans annually. The average loan program amount is about $7,300. We have had periods of double rebates in our rebate program, and that drove up our loan numbers in certain years. Again, the basics in this program are 5-year term, $10,000 max, $20,000 for solar loans, and we also loan $20,000, up to $20,000 for Energy Star reflective roofing. And that's about it for my comments. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Bob. That was a lot of great information and advice. And just a reminder that if folks had a question that didn't get answered, you can go ahead and type that in for Bob and Julian, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. Next, we are going to do our last poll, and this is really to help us here at EPA inform our future work on clean energy financing. We just had a quick question about other green financing opportunities you might be interested in or are pursuing in your community. And again, you can choose multiple answers here. So you're not really interested in any other clean energy financing. You're interested in green bonds, green banks, green loans, or some other form of clean energy or green financing. If you do select that one, if you could go ahead and give us an idea of what it is you're thinking about in the Q&A box, that would be great. Great. So I think we can go ahead and close that poll. So there's looks like fairly high levels of interest in the 3 different clean energy financing mechanisms we mentioned here. We have 20 votes for green banks and then 17 votes each for green bonds and green loans. A handful, 6 or so people who are not really looking at other programs, and a few suggestions for others, and I'm seeing some description of those coming in, so great. Thanks very much for that information. We'll use that to help inform other resources we put out in the future. And with that, I'm going to introduce our final speaker for today. Gwen Yamamoto Lau was appointed as the Executive Director of the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority in January 2017. She brings over 30 years of strategic leadership and lending experience in commercial banking as well as community development financing. Prior to joining the authority, Ms. Yamamoto Lau served in a variety of executive positions, including as president of the Hawaii Community Reinvestment Corporation, a community development financial institution. The authority was created in November 2014 to administer the Green Infrastructure Loan Program, which was capitalized with a $150 million Green Energy Market Securitization Bond Issue, or GEMS, which you're going to hear her talk about. Gwen, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Andrea. So good morning, or perhaps good afternoon to most of you, and aloha from Hawaii. As Hawaii has the highest cost of energy, ranging from 28.1 cents to 37.9 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on which island you live on, coupled with our high cost of living, the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority, or HGIA, as Andrea mentioned, was constituted by our state legislature in November 2014 to make green energy accessible and affordable for Hawaii's ratepayers. You know, almost half of Hawaii's households are classified as ALICE, the United Way's acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed, or Below. And to make matters worse, with the median price of a single-family home on Oahu at almost $800,000, approximately 43% of Hawaii's households are forced to rent. HGIA exists to democratize clean energy by providing non-traditional and flexible financing to enable our most vulnerable populations an opportunity to lower their energy costs while going green. Leveraging our on-bill repayment mechanism as a tool, we also seek to stimulate private investments and reach new markets. This past April was the official launch of our Green Energy Money Saver on-bill program, which is available to about 95% of the state over 5 islands. Unique features of our program include non-traditional underwriting, as Nick mentioned, which means no credit reports or debt-to-income ratios. Qualification is a simple 2-step process. First, the applicant cannot have had a disconnection notice from the utility over the past 12 months. And second, the energy installation requested, whether it's a solar, hot water heater, solar PV, commercial energy efficiency retrofit, must have an estimated 10% minimum savings, including the repayment of the loan. This estimating savings, while not guaranteed, is very important as our goal is to help our ratepayers be in a better place financially after the installation of their energy improvement than they were before. The estimated savings are not guaranteed as it is dependent upon a number of factors beyond our control, such as weather, the cost of oil, and of course, human behavior. With 43% of our households renting, it was important for our policymakers to ensure that the program was also designed for renters. We did this by tying the obligation to the utility meter, which allows for transfer from tenant to tenant, split incentives, and creative terms to eliminate obstacles for landlords. The interest rate is fixed at 5.5% with a term of up to 20 years. Our term is based on the estimated useful life of the retrofit. While we have a $5,000 minimum loan amount, we are flexible on this, and we are able to finance heat pumps, solar hot water heaters, and solar PVs for residential low-moderate income households and renters, and solar PV and commercial energy efficiency for nonprofits, small businesses, and multifamily rental projects. I'd love to say that designing and implementing an on-bill program is quick and easy, but unfortunately it was not. The journey of on-bill in Hawaii began in 2011 when the governor signed Act 204 into law, which directed the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, or PUC, to investigate the viability of an on-bill financing program for Hawaii. The PUC initiated the investigation on August 15, 2011. On February 1st, 2013, the on-bill financing program was deemed viable. The PUC then commenced the implementation phase through our Public Benefits Fee Administrator, Hawaii Energy. On January 9, 2015, the Hawaii Energy Bill Saver Program Manual was published by the PUC. However, in October 2015, its Finance Program Administrator informed the PUC that it will not renew its contract set to expire on December 31st, 2015. Following a search for a replacement Finance Program Administrator, the PUC determined that there was not a viable replacement that met its need in the current program structure. Thus, on May 20, 2016, the PUC suspended the Hawaii Energy Bill Saver Program and directed the utility to work with HGIA to design and implement an on-bill repayment mechanism for its exclusive use. So we began our on-bill journey in late 2016, early 2017, with weekly project meetings consisting of members from HGIA, the electric utility, and Concord, our loan servicer. In April 2018, the PUC conditionally approved our Green Energy Money Saver on-bill program, and in December 2018, we received final approval. The IT systems programming between the utility and our loan servicer was the most time and resource consuming. Additionally, to ensure utility bill integrity, the testing phase was complex and comprehensive. And finally, after almost 2.5 years of work, on April 8, 2018, our repayment mechanism went live on the utility bill. Due to the suspension of the Bill Saver program, when HGIA began working on designing its GEMS program, we needed to once again get stakeholder buy-in. Stakeholders had previously invested 5 years in helping to develop the original program, had lost confidence in Hawaii's ability to execute. Using the foundation established with the Bill Saver Program Manual, we incorporated design enhancements based on feedback from energy stakeholders, landlords, the utility, and consumer advocate. I find innovating or creating a new program to be fun, rewarding, and challenging. The hardest part isn't coming up with ideas to design a program, but the discipline and focus needed to transform these ideas into documents, processes, and procedures for execution. IT programming and testing to automate the billing process was also time and thought intensive, having to brainstorm scenarios which don't yet exist in order to program and test on 2 different operating systems, the utilities and our loan servicers. The project team must also have strong technical expertise, whether it's in lending, programming, or loan servicing, and also be comfortable being outside of their comfort zone for prolonged periods to undertake this task. When we finally got the program approved, our next challenge was on how to get the word out. As a lender for a state agency, we lacked both funding and marketing expertise. Additionally, this financing program, being brand new to Hawaii, is made more difficult by the complicated solar PV interconnection programs available, such as standard interconnection, customer grid supply, customer self-supply, customer grid supply plus, and spot export, making it difficult for the general public to understand. The subject matter is also too complicated for typical mass marketing tactics like direct mail. We found that making presentations or having conversations is the best way to help interested ratepayers, especially the LMI population and the hard-to-reach, understand how this program works. Unfortunately, as a state agency, we are not able to increase staff without the approval of the state legislature or the governor to accommodate the increased workload of educating ratepayers on 5 separate islands, training contractors on the unique nuances of the on-bill program, and processing loan applications. As such, some of the most important characteristics required on our team is to have a huge appetite for hard work and the ability to remain flexible and fluid in implementing this new program. Luckily, through the generosity of a local energy stakeholder who provided a grant, we were able to engage a communications professional to help us get the word out. Thanks to his expertise, applications received monthly are up by over 300%. To date, and this is specifically for the on-bill program, it does not include our other financing, we have approximately 50 single-family projects approved aggregating $1 million. The average loan size is $21,000 with an average project size of $25,000. We have established a $20 million solar plus storage fund for those ratepayers without a tax appetite. The average loan size is $34,000 with an average project size of $62,000. And we have approved 8 commercial projects for nonprofits, small businesses, and multifamily projects aggregating $3.3 million with an average loan size of $422,000 and an average project size of $792,000. Lastly, with a culture of Kaizen, or continuous improvement, we are seeking ways to streamline our processing. We are also finding that the on-bill repayment mechanism is unlocking new markets as developers are leaning in to providing solars to renters, low and moderate income rental projects, and LMI households for community solar projects. We look forward to the continued enhancement of our program for greater impact. Here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gwen. That was really interesting and helpful, I think, for people who are thinking about starting one of these programs themselves. I just wanted to remind everyone on the line that you can take a moment to type in a question for Gwen or for any of the other speakers that you might not have had a chance to type in yet. And we are going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to go back to the beginning and start with a question for Nick. While I'm saying for Nick, if other people want to jump in as well, Gwen or Bob or Julian, and add to Nick's answer, please feel free to do that. So the first question we have is state enabling legislation needed for a rural co-op or an IOU to offer an on-bill financing program?
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute.
Okay.
So I believe the answer is it's dependent on the state. But if Gwen or Bob want to jump in to help better answer that question or describe their experience of setting up down bill in their individual state, that would be welcome.
I'll jump in. I'm not sure if it's necessarily required. However, it does help move the process along. Our state has very aggressive clean energy goals, and with it, the policy, having strong policies makes projects move faster, if you can call what we did fast.
In Tallahassee, I'll say that was a question in the early 80s, whether it was right for a public utility like ours to be lending public money to the public. And it was debated on the front pages of our local newspaper. Our city attorney defended it as justified within the concepts of demand-side management, so that our locally owned utility could defer or delay or downsize future expensive power plants through the successive loan program and other programs. But that's how it was discussed at the time.
Great, thanks. So this is another question that was targeted at Nick, and which is what % of on-bill programs are to commercial or industrial properties versus residential and multifamily properties? And we got some numbers from Bob and from Gwen about their respective programs, and curious, I guess, whether those kinds of rough percentages hold true more nationally or across programs broadly.
I don't have those numbers on hand for nationally what they are. I'm not sure that they exist at the moment, but there is I would check out the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab report. That is kind of the most robust study of these type of questions. So I would have to pull that up myself to give the right answer.
No worries. Thanks. All right. Sorry, I have one more for you, Nick, and then we'll let you off the hot seat. This is, and maybe the LBNL report might be a good answer to this as well, but where can I look for more resources on examples of consumer protection efforts related to on-bill or tariff programs?
So a good place to look, I think, would be where I mentioned earlier, the Environment and Energy Institute. They have their on-bill financing page is really a great resource for just about any questions you have about setting up an on-bill program and concerns for it. I believe on a few of my slides I have a link to their page.
Great. Thanks, Nick. All right, we'll let you off the hook at least for a few minutes and turn to some questions for Bob and Julian. So the first question is, in the city of Tallahassee, is there a startup or application fee assessed? And if so, is it a fixed amount or a percentage of the loan?
There is no startup or application fee. although I'll say there's an administrative fee that's part of the loan total and repaid, 1%.
Yeah.
There's a 1% admin fee. But there's no down payment, there's no at the start upfront payment.
In our loan program with a $10,000 maximum, the doc stamp and recording fees, administrative fees, those type of fees are included in that $10,000 maximum. So typically you might have a couple $100 that comes out in those kind of fees, and then say if it was a proposal for $10,500, then $9,800 would go to the contractor and the customer would be out of pocket for whatever the difference was over that amount.
Great. Next question, again for Tallahassee, is does the Tallahassee program cover the cost of building shell, for example, insulation or air sealing improvements?
We don't have the shell itself and carpentry related to the building shell as a loan measure.
Except for roofs.
Yeah, except for roofs. We do have loans. Among the loan measures are loans for ceiling insulation, wall insulation, and floor insulation, and windows. So all part of the shell. But we do not have a specific measure for like carpentry undertakings.
And we have a ceiling insulation grant program as well that pays up to $400 for residential customers to help them bump up their insulation. Sometimes people may go over that and include the amount as a loan measure as well.
Great. And then the final question I'm going to ask you right now specifically to Tallahassee is whether you allow e-signatures for loan signing.
No, we don't. Most of our paperwork, the application process and all that is done through email and can be done with e-signatures. But we do require the promissory note and documents to be notarized, so they aren't e-signed.
Great. So turning to Gwen, we had a question about whether Hawaii is a municipal utility or has municipal utilities. Could you speak to that?
No, so we have two utilities. One is the co-op that's on the island of Kauai. That's that 5% that we're not able to finance. And the other one is investor-owned.
Okay, great. I think, Gwen, that this one might be for you, but it might also be one that Tallahassee could weigh in on. To qualify for a loan, do you have to have a minimum debt-to-income ratio, and do you require proof of income?
No, it's really based on the repayment of the utility bill. Although we do ask on our application for stated income, household income, and household size, and that's how we determine what income category they are in to qualify them as a low moderate income household. We use the HUD, U.S. Housing and Urban Development metrics for that.
Great. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Julian. So as Nick kind of mentioned earlier in his presentation, for us, we aren't looking at someone's credit bureau rating. We're using our own internal bill history and repayment. So if a customer has good bill history, no bankruptcies or foreclosures in the past couple of years, and we do put a lien on their property, and they are owners, then they are pretty much automatically eligible.
Great. And then one final one for Gwen right now, which is how is the on-bill financing mechanism being used for community solar projects? Is it being coordinated with the utility provider that has a community solar program?
Yeah, so right now we're not able to finance it. We need to go back to the PUC for approval for that. However, we're finding that community solar developers are interested in leveraging the mechanism. It does two things for them. It mitigates their risk, and it also lowers their cost because in essence we will be doing their servicing for them. So we are working on putting together a request to go back to the PUC to enable us to be able to use the on-bill repayment mechanism for that purpose.
Great. So now we have a number of questions that I think maybe more than one person could weigh in on. So I'm going to throw some of these out there and people can jump in. So one that seems interesting was whether any of you have calculated if these programs actually reduced peak demand and saved the utility money on reduced capacity charges.
So I'll weigh in. So we've not calculated it, although anecdotally I understand that it has reduced peak demand charges for our commercial clients.
Great. Bob or Julian, did you want to weigh in?
I know that's been calculated here in Tallahassee in the past. I don't have figures in my head available to speak more in detail to it, though.
I mean, was the question reducing peak demand charges or reducing system peak loads?
It asked if it reduced peak demand and saved money on reduced capacity charges.
So that's system. Yeah. So it has, I don't know what the numbers are for us, but it has been computed and analyzed, and I think that's one of the things they probably consider with future plans.
Yeah, it's definitely in Tallahassee for some 35 of the 36 years of the program. Fuel switching from electric to natural gas was a major component in the loan program, and fundamental to our efforts at demand-side management, reducing peak load on the electric utility.
Great. So another question that's come in is whether on-bill financing could be a mechanism that could be used for municipal or county projects.
So, sorry. So it can be. We do financing for state agencies, and if they choose to repay it on bill, we can have it done that way.
We're thinking that we haven't done that in Tallahassee.
Okay. So a question about how well on-bill financing can work with a renter landlord, and could an irresponsible landlord, kind of use this to improve the property and put the cost of the improvements on the renters? I wonder if you could just speak a little bit about your experiences, or Nick, maybe anything that you guys have done research on about kind of how well this has worked for, or how it's benefited renters.
Well, I would say that we have a loan limit, so it's one loan per residential customer or commercial customer at a time. They can get multiple loans as long as they don't exceed the maximum loan amount. So for a landlord, they could borrow, and if they had a commercial account, then bill payment would go on the commercial account. If it's a residential unit that they owned, then that payment would go, it would have to go onto their own residential utility bill if they have a residential account with the city of Tallahassee. So it limits them to how much they could do at one time, and as to whether or not they would increase the rent, or based on that, I don't know, but it would still be an improvement to the property and reduce bills for the renter.
And we've done quite a few loans like that, where the loan payments go to the property owner's home utility bill for improvement at a rental property.
For ours, it's we have we limit our financing only to energy improvements that are approved, such as solar hot water heaters, solar PV heat pumps. So it's specific improvements per se. The renter, it's a split incentive. So the renter, if the renter cannot have a lower utility bill estimated, including the repayment of the retrofit, we will not approve it. So it's a split incentive. It benefits both. It must benefit both the renter and the landlord.
Great. Thanks. So there's been a few questions that I'm going to kind of aggregate a little bit, just related, I think, with people understanding what happens when the person who originally qualified for the loan or the program moves out of the building, and is it repaid at the time of sale of a property, or does it transfer to a new owner? Could someone maybe just walk a little bit through how that, and maybe Nick, maybe this is a question for you more generally, or if Tallahassee or Hawaii want to weigh in, but just explain a little bit how that works, or different examples of how that works.
It is definitely case by case depending on the structure of the program, but generally the loan, if you're like for conventionally the loan, and please others chime in, but would be paid off at the sale. But
and this is Julian with the city, and that's how our program works as well.
So ours is a little bit different. It gives a little bit more options. So when it's a renter, when it's a investment property, we require the landlords to disclose the existence of this on-bill obligation on the utility meter, and so they need to share it with their potential new new tenant, have some paperwork filled in. Yeah, because the retrofit that say the solar PV or solar hot water is already on the home, we don't do another analysis to see if there's savings. But the new tenant needs to agree to that before moving in, and then we can continue the obligation of the repayment of the obligation when the new tenant signs up for the utility account. When it's a homeowner and it's on bill, we require them to disclose to a new, and they're selling their house, we require them to disclose on the obligation to the buyer. If the buyer agrees to it, then it's great, the obligation transfers. If the buyer refuses to accept the on-bill obligation, then at that point we ask that they pay us off within escrow, and typically a seller can recoup the investment by just, by the sales price.
Great. The question for Tallahassee, whether you happen to know what the uptake level has been for reflective roofs through this program.
Yeah, it's been significant. It's since we started the roofing loans for Energy Star reflective roofing, it's been the largest item that we loan for after HVAC systems.
Wow, great. And then I think this is a question probably for both Gwen and Bob and Julian about the requirements for commercial loans and how those might differ from residential.
So for our residential customers, I mentioned that earlier, that they have to, again, it's based, the loan is to the landlord, to the owner. And so for them, it's based on bill payment history, no bankruptcies or foreclosures recently, and they have to own the property. We put a lien on it. It's the same thing for commercial customers. They have to own the property. So there's a downside in our program for commercial customers, since a lot of commercial customers are leasing, and middle and larger commercial customers also have deeper pockets, more financing options, and oftentimes the size of equipment and the amount that they need for improvements is greater than what our program allows. So that's why we might only have 15 or 20 commercial loans a year, but we've got 400 to 500 residential loans. And hope that answers.
For our program, the criteria is the same, whether it's commercial or residential. I will say for nonprofits especially, they like the on-bill program because typically Hawaii is a very conservative lending environment, and so typically most commercial loans require some kind of recourse or guarantee. And as you know, nonprofits, they don't have anybody to guarantee the loan. So it works well for nonprofits. And good or bad, the rates, our utility rates are pretty high here. So even if they have to forego the solar tax credits, it still makes sense for them.
Great, thanks. Gwen, one more for you. Are there any stats available in Hawaii about how much money the nonprofit organizations that have participated have saved through your program?
I don't have it off the top of my head. We do track we do have energy metrics that we track and report to the PUC. It's not necessarily broken down to nonprofits. If whoever asked that question would like to email me, I can certainly provide them the answer to that.
Great, thanks, Gwen. All right, well, I think we just have a couple more, and then we'll wrap up. So for Nick, we wondered if you could share a few examples maybe of utilities or localities that you think have really robust on-bill programs that people should look into. And if you prefer to just refer people back to the resources, that's fine too, but if there's any off the top of your head that you think that you would recommend people look at, that would be great.
Sure, I would definitely take a look at NYSERDA's in New York. They have a pretty robust program, as well as, I forget the name of the administrator, but that operates the Tennessee Valley Authorities program. Those are two off the top of my head that I would recommend.
Great, thanks, Nick. One last question for Bob and Julian. How do you track energy efficiency improvements as a result of the loans the city offers?
Well, we track the different measures, just through a database type of system for how many measures we do of the 39 or so measures that we have every year, and we report that. As far as the energy efficiency gain, that's more difficult. So it's basically assumed, as like an ASEER rating or something like that. If you're going from an 8 or a 9 or a 10 to a 15, what the efficiency gain would be.
There are, there are potential concerns with things like free ridership that we don't fret over in the loan program, at least.
Yep. Great. And then one last question for Gwen. Since you mentioned Kaizen, we were just wondering what adjustments or improvements you see on the horizon for the program.
So, one was already mentioned. It's, including asking for approval to include community-based solar projects. Also in our loan processing. And also we're finding that, and it's kind of a conundrum. So we do have, because we are trying to help the low moderate income homeowners and renters, we do find that they have had disconnection notices. And so one of the things we would like to go back and tweak our program with is maybe they, instead of approving a solar PV, most people apply for solar PV here in Hawaii, is maybe we can deny counteroffer a solar hot water retrofit to reduce their energy costs, because the reason why they're probably having a disconnection notice is because they're having trouble paying their utility bill. If we can get that utility bill down, then perhaps they can pay it on time. And so that's things that we are contemplating and doing some due diligence on to see if we should be tweaking the program that way.
Great. Thanks so much, Gwen.
This is Julian. Can I make a quick comment about the loan programs in general?
Absolutely.
Sure. So for the utility, for us, a loan program is a win-win situation because, we have a low default rate, 1% or less, and the money going out comes back to you since it's a loan. So it's so much better than giving money out through rebates that never comes back to you. So it's a great thing for us. It helps reduce customer costs and lowers high bill complaints. And the customers are genuinely appreciative of those efforts.
Great. Thanks so much.
Mhm.
So I just want to thank all of our speakers one more time. We really appreciate you being here today and sharing your expertise with those people that were able to call in or who will be able to watch the recording. For those participants on the line, I encourage you to click on this link here to our webinar feedback form. That really helps us put together future webinars and tailor them to be useful to you. I also encourage you to visit our website and sign up for our newsletter to stay informed about new products we have coming on clean energy financing and other topics. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to the operator to close out the call. Thank you.
This concludes today's conference call. Thank you everyone for joining. You may now disconnect. Presenters, please stay on.